The contents of this box is going to be for today's video. So I was sent a few more bottles of resin from the folks over at FUNCRECOL. They've got a new line of resin that's out right now, and it is matte resin. So this matte resin is supposed to have a non-reflective surface, and you can get it on Amazon right now for about $35, $36 or so. They sent me 3 bottles of it. So this is their matte resin, and it has a few different colors. This one is going to be for the red clay color. And then the second color of resin I have from them is the gray matte resin. And then last but not least, the final color is skin. Nice. I think I'm going to try the skin color first because I'm very interested in that. But yeah, this video is going to be all about these new matte resins. So we're going to take a look at them, see how easy they are to print, get a sense of what the smell is like, and then most importantly, how do the models look when they are finished printing. So here are a few of the models that I printed out using the 3 different colors of FUNCRECOL's matte resin. Now, one of them you've probably seen before, and that's this gremlin right over here. I showed this off previously in my review of a resin detergent, and he looked really good in that video, and he still looks good here today. So you can just see the nice flat finish that this guy has as a result of that resin. I think he looks really good. The next 2 models I printed were of Harry and Marv from Home Alone, and I used the gray resin for these guys. And they also turned out looking pretty good. Now, the exposure time for both these guys and for the gremlin here, the normal layer exposure time I used was 2.5 seconds, which was the minimum exposure time that they recommended for printing. And I think they came out looking fine. The only thing with the gray resin is there's some areas on it that look a little bit ashy and a little bit chalky. And I thought that it might have been because of the IPA that I was using. Maybe it was a little bit too dirty and it needed to be cleaned. So I did actually get some completely fresh IPA, and I printed Marv first, and then I printed Harry second. And even though Harry was printed with the clean IPA, he still has quite a few instances of that chalkiness going on with them. So I'm not too sure what that is all about. But if you wanted to paint these and you're going to prime them, those would just go away anyway. So it's kind of like whatever. But the printing process of these guys was just perfect through and through. I didn't have any failed prints with these 2 resins. So the last resin that I printed with had the label of red on top of the bottle, and I used it to print this Constantine here. Now, I have not had the best track record when it comes to printing with resins that describe themselves as red, whether it's red clay or just plain red, as it said on the label for this guy. And same kind of things happened. I tried printing it at 2.5 seconds for a normal layer exposure. First print I tried to do was a complete failure. I had the first layers peeling off the build plate, and a large chunk of the model stuck to the FEP. Complete failure. So I decided to bump up the exposure time to 3.5 seconds for this Constantine model. And when I did that, he printed perfectly. I think this guy looks really good, and he is flawless. He came out looking great. But I also wanted to print the stand for him. So using the exact same settings, I went to print the stand. And it was a complete failure, just like the first time. Model peeling from the plate, and then some of it stuck to the FEP. Same parameters, same resin, same temperature. It's running at a constant 85 degrees, give or take. And this guy turned out perfectly, but the stand completely failed. I don't know what it is about these red resins that, they just don't get along with me, but it was the most difficult time that I had trying to print with this matte resin. However, the gray and the skin colors were perfect every time. Never had a problem with it. So yeah, I guess my track record of having a bad experience with a resin that's kind of like this sort of orangish kind of a color, it continues to be not so great. Now, one of the other things that they mention about this type of resin is that it has minimum light reflectivity. And, to be honest, I never really found that to be an issue with resin printing. I never thought like, man, this print looks great, but I wish it wasn't so reflective. it's something that just doesn't bother me. Maybe that's something that you care about, and that's fine. So let's just kind of see how the light reflectivity is with these particular models. So now that I got Constantine spinning around, I'm looking for reflectivity of the light, and really for the most part I'm not seeing too much of it, honestly. Everything looks pretty consistent all the way across. There have been some times in some different lighting conditions where just at the right angle I can see a little bit of that reflectivity, but in general not really a lot. So I say that they did a pretty good job with that. But let's take a look at a different color model. So now taking a look at this Harry here, and I can see a little bit of light reflectivity on his face as he sort of turns towards the light that I have on him. And it's really just mostly the face. So yeah, it's a little bit of a reflection. I can't say that it's drastically different than any other kind of gray resin that I've used in the past. But yeah, hopefully you can see it in the camera just like I can see it with my naked eye. And now for our gremlin buddy, I see a little bit of light reflectivity really just on top of his head where all those little bumps and stuff are concentrated. But as I look kind of like on his clothes, it is looking pretty flat all the way around. So it doesn't completely eliminate the light. Then again, they never said that it's going to completely eliminate light reflectivity. So if that's something that interests you or something that really bothers you, then yeah, this does give a pretty decent matte finish. It's not going to solve the problem completely, but it is decent. So that's my take on the FUNCRECOL matte resin. For the most part, I had a good experience printing with this, with the exception of the red right there. I'm always having an issue with this type of resin, but these other two colors for the skin and for the gray, I didn't have any failures whatsoever, and I think the models turned out looking very nice. I personally don't quite understand the whole matte aspect of it. I mean, I can see it, but as far as the light reflectivity goes, it's never really been a big deal for me. So it's kind of like, you know, I'm really just more interested in how it looks overall and how easy it is to print with it. And with these two colors in particular, you know, it was a good experience. And you can see for yourself that the models look pretty good. So there you go. So if you're interested in picking up this resin, make sure that you check out the link in the description so it can take you over to where you can find it over on Amazon. So that's going to do it for this review. And if you want to see more 3D printing related reviews just like this, be sure to subscribe and check back later because I'll always have more coming. Until then, take care of yourselves. I'll speak to you soon.